I know building a comp in a tactical shooter is a kind of a newer thing. It kind of comes over, the idea comes over from Overwatch, where the way that you build your team composition is really important. Okay, so I want to do this video. Basically, like, I know it's super early in the game, it just came out, so all of these opinions are subject to change. I know there could be a lot of buffs, nerfs, total meta changes to the game upcoming. I know I've already heard there's some character nerfs on the way, so things are definitely going to be subject to change. But I just wanted to kind of throw together some initial thoughts about the game. Not really the game, but the characters. I know a lot of people are doing character guides and character tier lists and things, but I wanted to take a slightly different angle and look at character comp, because this game is actually designed in a way that, yes, it's more about the gunplay, like the character abilities and so forth don't really overshadow the gunplay, but they're still incredibly important. And a lot of these characters have some really interesting utility, and there's going to be a lot of room for strategy and adaptation across, especially in the esports scene, across multiple rounds and changing up characters between best of 3 games, etc., etc., etc. But just from a casual perspective, or, from someone playing pubs trying to get better, I'm not talking to the pros here. I know they've got all the strats already, but I want to talk about how to build a character comp right off the bat, especially when you're hopping into these pubs and trying to get people to work together and get the most out of these characters. So the first category, I've kind of categorized the characters. The first category that I want to look at is kind of essential characters, and the first essential character that I think every team should start with, especially if it's a pickup team, is Brimstone. Brimstone, I mean, I don't know that he's the most fun to play. I haven't played him a lot, but I know that the value you get out of him is, there are few characters that get more value consistently out of a player. I mean, Brimstone has 3 smokes to begin with. He can put them pretty much anywhere on the map as long as he's somewhat close to it. Super important. He can break into sites, especially on attack. You can smoke off sites, plant bomb, and get set up quickly. You can throw down smokes in ways that you're trying to dupe the enemy team into thinking you're going in a certain direction when you're going in another, to a different bomb site. On defense, obviously, having smokes is really important, especially in a tactical shooter. So having characters with smoke grenades on your team is incredibly important to begin with. So the utility of that is tried and true. We all know that. He also has a Molly, or Molotov grenade, which is, once again, kind of a basic, something everyone's familiar with from Counter-Strike. It's a basic zoning tool, kind of like a grenade. Molly's the ground. It's good for flushing out opponents, dealing damage, etc., etc., etc. He's like your all-around good character, because he's great for setting up team utility, but he can also frag on his own. And then with his stem beacon, little less important ability, definitely useful. All it does is speed up the rate of fire of your gun when you stand within the circle that it drops on, which is super cool, but less game changing. And then his ult, the orbital strike, that just obliterates a section of the map that you put it on, super important. So I think Brimstone is a cornerstone of any team. I think, if you're ever unsure who to pick, or if your team doesn't have one in the character select screen, definitely pick him up. I don't think you will regret it. The second essential character, which I only think there are 2 absolute essentials right now, is Sage. Dude, Sage is so good. And there's a lot of depth to playing with her. I mean, she can heal her opponent. She can heal her teammates. She can heal herself. She can create an ice wall, which is a pain in the butt to shoot down or knife through or get around. So walling off entire sections of the map, the ice wall lasts forever. And then her ultimate is a revive. So she's incredibly useful. She can pocket entry fraggers as soon as they go down. If her ult's up, she can wall off and res them. She can, utilize areas of the maps in certain ways that are really useful. Her slowing orb throws down some ice on the ground and makes it really loud for you to walk on, and also slow and slippery. Obviously useful as just a general zoning tool. Lots of cool angles on the map that people are probably going to get into really quickly, from where you can like shoot over walls and land your slowing orb in key places that can really mess up the enemy. So like tons of utility here, which is what I think is most important. She can farm her ult incredibly quickly. She can go wall off certain parts of the map and go for the little orbs on the map that build up your ultimate very quickly. She can get like 2, if not 3, depending on how good your Sage is, ultimates per half, which is, I mean, I think that's a game changer. Maybe that's just me, but that's a big game changer to me. And then that, along with her utility across the board, I mean, just being able to heal your enemies, having a wall, it's a no-brainer. So like, I think Brimstone and Sage are the most important characters right off the bat to have on just any comp. They apply across the board, and I feel like you can get value out of both characters regardless of your skill level, assuming you use your brain a little bit and try to help out your team and play with them. Next up, the next few characters are pretty much entry fraggers. I think you can have 1 to 2 of them per team, or as many as you like. It really just depends on your playstyle and what you want to do. But Phoenix, Jett, and Breach are kind of your main entry fraggers. They're not the only ones. There's a couple characters that can do it. Some characters do it better than others, but these seem to be the characters that a lot of the high frag gameplay streamers and pro players are going for. Phoenix is really good for flashing around corners, breaking into sites. His wall, he has a wall, so he can obscure sight. He has a Molotov. I mean, he's got a great utility. And then his ultimate, really great for entry fragging. Pop that ultimate, run around the corner, go for your kill or 2. And if it doesn't work out, you got your life back. So I think Phoenix is really great all around. One of the best entry fraggers, in my opinion. I know Jett, a lot of people love Jett. Her biggest utility is her mobility. This is a character that I think does a lot better at higher levels of gameplay. I think a lot of inexperienced players won't get a ton of value out of her because you have to be thinking in kind of a different way than you normally would in regards to this tactical shooter type of gameplay. This is a character that sort of reminds me of like Overwatch or something. Just a lot of mobility. She can throw herself up into the air with her Q ability called Updraft, and then she can use her E ability, which is the one on cooldown that's always passive. Shoots her forward. Great for taking surprise angles on people before, like right when the walls come down at the beginning of the match, taking surprise angles, taking on multiple enemies. She's really good for clutching things up, especially with her ult. Her ult is one of her most exciting pieces to her kit because it looks freaking cool. It's great for highlight reels and so forth. But a really good character or really good player with good aim can do a lot of damage with this. So yeah, I mean, if you're fragging out, Jett is for you. I mean, she also just has her smokes. The only thing I don't like about her smokes, called Cloudburst, is they don't last long at all. They're good for mobility if you want to wall off somewhere and reposition yourself, but they're, as opposed to like Brimstone's, which his smokes last a really long time. Jett's are way more of a kind of mid-game utility rather than in like opening up a site kind of utility and setting up. So yeah, but I think Jett's really good. A little bit weaker of the entry fraggers, in my opinion. The third one being a really interesting character that I haven't seen a ton of gameplay of. I know there's a lot of it. I just haven't pursued a lot of it, is Breach. He just has a really good kit all around. He's really good for just barreling onto a site or just jumping out and going after frags right off the bat. He can smash the wall and pretty much puts a flashbang through the wall. Flashbangs are really important because there's not a ton of characters, from what I can tell, that actually have a flashbang type of ability. There's a lot of kind of similar things that you can do with different characters that create sort of a flashbang effect, but Phoenix and Breach are some of the most blatant flashbang characters. I think it's important to have one of those on your team because, I mean, if you look at the way that the meta plays out in games like Counter-Strike, you know that flashbangs are important. So I think his ability to smash the wall with his blinding charge and blinding everyone around the wall is really important. He also has Fault Line, which if you just hold it down, release it, set off the earthquake, it dazes the players. Aftershock is good. Fusion Charge. I mean, it just bursts through the wall. Everything he does is about bursting through the wall, which is why it's good. It's why he's a good entry fragger, because he can kind of sneak up and then just explode onto the scene and try and pick up some kills. And then obviously his ultimate is pretty cool. Just another massive earthquake. Everything he does is like earthquake related. It all looks pretty similar, but does slightly different things. I think he's a pretty solid entry fragger. When it comes to the entry fraggers, I think you should have 1 to 2 of them per team, and you can kind of just throw around whatever you want. You can insert other characters, but if we're talking about just like utility, I think Phoenix, Jett, and Breach are your most important ones, with Phoenix and Breach taking priority as all-around players, but a good Jett is gonna just dominate. And people love Jett. She looks awesome. She feels good to play. She's fun, fast. You know, I don't blame people for going after Jett. I'm always happy to see a good Jett on my team. The third and more interesting category here, which is kind of the last important category in my opinion, is the kind of lurker recon characters, with the first of which being Sova. He's really good for holding, like especially on the map with 3 bomb sites. He's really good for rotating around, getting recon, firing his E ability, his passive. It's good for grabbing intel, shoot it, bounce it around corners, illuminates where the enemy is. You can figure out how many people you have on a site, where they're pushing, get general positional information. I mean, his Q ability, which is kind of like his E ability, it's a bouncing arrow, but this one actually is an explosive bolt, and it damages the nearby players, which is, it's good for the times when you don't want to just peek corners, you don't want to take that aim duel, or you're just not sure who's there. Just go ahead and pre-fire it, see if you pick anything up, and execute on that. His owl drone, after playing a decent amount of Sova yesterday, I didn't find it to be, like, it's useful if you execute on it. I'm sure some people will get really good at it, but I didn't love that, because without a team that's supporting you, it's really easy to get flanked on and just killed while you're set up in your drone. But I do think there's some utility in it. Playing with a more cohesive team will help that a lot. It's really good for setting up that tracker on players. And then his ult is good. You smash the wall, it illuminates where the players are, and does, I think, 70 damage. Who doesn't love that? But Sova's a good lurker. You can hang out kind of in the middle of the map and watch flanks. You can move on to sites where, when you're the attacking team, and kind of recon the area, get an idea of what's going on, and then make your decisions from there. So I think Sova's a really strong character. The second lurker, which is an interesting one, the new character that came out, there's less, I guess, there's probably a lot of gameplay of her, but less developed character, because most of what we saw and most of what people were playing was from the alpha test the other weekend. This character just came out yesterday, so there's less formed opinions on her, other than the fact that she's totally broken. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to nerf her. My guess is going to be they're going to nerf her ult, maybe some. But she's really good all around, because she has 2 grenades, which act like nice grenades that also like fire out like shrapnel on a second detonation, I think. Yeah, it creates sub-munitions doing damage to anyone in the range. It's an annoying ability to play against, and just having grenades, it's a tried and true method of the S&D format. Definitely a useful tool. Her C ability being the Boombot, which is a little Roomba robot that just like drives forward and it tries to blow up whoever it sees. I've seen people say that this isn't a great ability, but if you watch some of the higher level players, it's really good for getting info, sending it around corners, forcing players, if you catch someone out, forcing people to shoot it, lets you know who's there, what's going on. It's really good for recon, which is why I put her in the lurker category, because she can get information. She can, throw grenades into key areas and gain information, but also deal damage and kind of force people out of positions, which I think is really important. And then, I mean, it's hard not to pick Raze, because that ultimate is just so clutch. It's probably going to get nerfed really quickly, but it's just a rocket launcher. You have like 5 or 6 seconds to absolutely annihilate a cluster of enemies if they're anywhere near each other. It's really easy to land. It's kind of a no skill ultimate. And yeah, I think Raze is, of the lurkers, the most valuable. And I would almost put her in an entry fragger or essential place. It was really hard to tell. I think I want one on every team. It's just kind of hard to place her because she can do it all, and that's why she's so good. I mean, she can move in, she can frag, she can get intel, and she can clutch up. So and that kind of wraps up the main categories. I think those are the meta characters right now. The remaining characters being like Omen, Cypher, Viper. I think these characters are good. I think there's going to be players that come up with really awesome strategies with these characters, but they kind of come across to me as more niche play styles, and they have good utility, but they're not essential. You know, Cypher is really interesting, good for getting information, but is he better than anyone else on the team? Maybe a few different areas. Same thing for Omen. Omen is very tricksy. I like having an Omen on my team that knows what they're doing, but takes a little bit more game sense to play these characters and to get your full value out of them, which is why I put them in a niche category. I think they're the kind of characters that people really need to dig deep on and figure out how to play right. Same thing goes for Viper. Viper has an interesting kit, but I found her kit's not intuitive to play. I like her kit a lot. I saw a lot of the original, I guess, ads for the game featured her and her wall of poison, her blob of poison this, poison that, poison everything, her poison cloud ult. She definitely gets some use out. And I think of the three, like, she might be one of the more interesting and useful characters. But the problem is that I think she's going to take some higher skill to play, or not just skill, but just some more experience. People need to kind of figure out the strats with her. Her abilities are kind of slow, so it's hard to just kind of throw them out of nowhere, because you have to throw her abilities and then you have to trigger them and then you have to take them down. And they're also set on a timer of gas, which runs out as you use her abilities. So you can't just, whereas with other characters, you can just throw out their abilities and execute them right then. Her abilities, you kind of have to be a little tighter with the timing on. And you will get some value out of them, but in the end, if you throw out her abilities and the enemy sees them, they can just wait them out. I mean, it'll buy you time, but most of the time you can wait them out unless it's in a clutch situation, which is where she's best at, in my opinion, is the clutch situations on the point when the bomb is down and when you're either defending or attacking the point. So yeah, that's kind of my character roundup right off the bat. Obviously, I'm no expert in all these characters. Obviously, there's going to be some buffs and nerfs coming along. But I think the idea that you have these essential characters being Brimstone and Sage, I want one of them on my team every time. They always get good value, even if the player that's manning the characters is not, the most amazing at his gun skill. You can get a lot of value out of it. You can direct these characters to really help out the team and play together. Phoenix, Jet, and Breach, having one or two of those on the team, preferably like a Phoenix. I love having a Phoenix on the team. Breach is really useful because it doesn't take a ton of skill to get use out of his abilities, which once again, we're talking kind of pub matches right now. Having someone play Breach on your team is really useful. They don't always have to be just like the most amazing FPS aimer to get value. Having one or two of those on your team and then one or two lurkers, probably just one Sova or Raze, that's going to be a great team right there. It kind of depends on the map you're going into. As people learn the meta, I think we'll obviously see some characters do better on some maps, so we'll be picking based around that. So that's why I have like a few characters in each category, and where the niche characters come in, Omen, Cypher, Viper, where those characters come into play will be very map dependent and also team comp dependent, because you don't want to build your team around those few characters. I'm sure you can do okay with them in pubs sometimes, and I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I wouldn't build a team if you're trying to go in seriously and win and play with your team around having multiple of those characters. I think having one of the three is good. I think having one of the lurkers is solid, and then with the essentials and entry fraggers, having one or two. So but it's in the end, it's up to you to build your comp based around your play style, based around the team you're with, how good your communication is, and really what kind of game you want to have. A really aggressive game, whether you want to play really defensively, whether you play slow. There's a ton of different ways to play this game, and there's so much depth that I'm really excited to kind of get into the weeds on how to excel in this game from a strategic standpoint, but also a mechanical standpoint. So I hope you guys enjoy. Hope that gives a little bit of more insight. I know this video is kind of running a little bit long, but hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more insight into, I guess, the way that you would think about building a comp. I know building a comp in a tactical shooter is a kind of a newer thing. It kind of comes over, the idea comes over from Overwatch, where the way that you build your team composition is really important. So I'm trying to kind of bring the same, bring similar principles of comp building to this game, where we have all these abilities in these different ways. You know, in a game like Counter-Strike, you can just buy whatever you need, your smokes, your mollies, your flashbangs. And this, you have to have the character. So you have to think a little bit more about it. There's a little bit more depth of gameplay here when it comes to the strategic elements of using abilities. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I'm definitely going to be working on some more Valorant content headed forward. I put hours and hours and hours into the game yesterday, and I'm going to put hours and hours and hours into the game today. So we are trying to climb up and figure this shit out. So definitely hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.